evening, everyone. I'm Rebecca Levy. I'm here from the YSA office in downtown DC, and tonight we're going to have our philanthropy webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I hope it's a good hour together. So a little bit about myself. I'm Rebecca Levy. I'm the manager of partnerships here at YSA. I'm originally from Colorado. My background is in business administration, and I have a master's in global entrepreneurship and management. I actually did have a background in accounting as well, so I'm familiar with money. So now that we're talking about philanthropy and money, it should be a good conversation. I also recently returned from the Peace Corps, where I was serving in Morocco. And if you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to me at rlevy@ysa.org, or my Twitter handle is RebeccaLevy999. I want to introduce you to our lovely panelists this evening. We have 4 amazing people on board with us tonight, as well as a couple people on our Twitter chat. So first speaking is going to be Michael Gale. He's the Senior Program Manager at Global Giving. And then we have Aditya and Nitish Sod. They are the founders of Working Together for Change and Hackstart. And finally, we have Amanda Howard. She is the Manager of Corporate and Community Volunteerism at United Way of Greater Toledo. All of these individuals have extensive backgrounds in terms of philanthropy and also working at different NGOs and 501c3s, and we're very excited to hear their advice on philanthropy tonight. In addition, our Twitter chat host tonight is Project Play. A little bit more about Project Play. Their mission is to improve the lives of disadvantaged youth by promoting a healthy and safe lifestyle through involvement in organized sports. The reason we asked them to be on our Twitter chat tonight is they do a lot of great work getting in-kind donations from different people, so different sports jerseys or sports equipments, and giving those to youth who might not have access to those materials. You can check out their website and then also email them at projectplaynh@gmail.com. In order to stay active tonight on our Twitter chat, make sure to use the hashtag GYSD, and also our handle is @YouthService, not @YSA, it's @YouthService. And as well, our Twitter chat, are at our panelists. We have Global Giving Online, Michael Gale, United Way of Toledo, as well as our 2 brothers online as well. So what are we going to be talking about tonight? So the big question is, what is philanthropy? I personally like to define philanthropy as charitable donations, someone giving money, and also fundraising. But as we'll explore more tonight, there's many different elements of philanthropy as you're executing your project. Here at YSA, we use the ASAP model a lot, which is awareness, service, advocacy, and philanthropy. So these are 4 unique ways that you can get individuals and youth specifically involved in different service projects in their community. So for example, for a philanthropy project in our Youth Changing the World Toolkit, we many times talk about a food or supply drive, coin collection competitions, or raising money for different causes such as a hurricane disaster relief. And I know even for me, raising money is one of the biggest things that we struggle with in organizations, but we are optimistic in this day and age with so many new and unique ways to raise money through the internet. As we'll talk a bit more with Global Giving and also microlending, crowdfunding, and there's even cool apps that you can send money to your friends or family through electronically, such as Venmo, Pop Money. With the internet, the idea of philanthropy has just really expanded. So some things we'll be discussing tonight in terms of philanthropy are in-kind donations, raising money for a cause, and then raising money for an organization. Each of our panelists will focus on one of these topics, and then YSA will conclude with our top 10 list of suggestions, some additional resources that we can share with you, as well as a question and answer session. So now our first speaker is Michael Gale.
Hello, thank you, Rebecca. It is great to be speaking with you all tonight. Again, my name is Michael Gale, and I am with Global Giving, based in Washington, D.C. I think I'm ready for the next slide. Just a little bit about global giving and what we're up to. We're the first and largest global crowdfunding community that connects nonprofits, donors, and companies in nearly every country around the world. So we're a crowdfunding platform, kind of plus. We're different in a few ways. One is we work a lot on the donor side of things. So we both train our nonprofit partners on how to use crowdfunding well to mobilize their own network, but then we also help connect our nonprofit partners to new donors, primarily through relationships with some really great companies all over the world. We work with about 3,000 nonprofits. About half of those are registered U.S. nonprofits, so 501c3 organizations. The other half, about 1,500 to 2,000 organizations, are registered as nonprofits all over the world in 160 other countries. The great thing about that is donations, it allows U.S. donors to make donations to international nonprofits and get the U.S. tax advantage for doing so. Our core mission is to make it possible for local organizations to access the funding, tools, and training they need to become more effective and to make their communities and our world at large a better place. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about some top tips for raising money for your organization. Next slide, please. So the million-dollar question, literally, how do I raise money for my organization? I've worked in several different nonprofits, and this is, of course, something that keeps founders and executive directors and fundraising staff and really everyone at a nonprofit up at night, because no nonprofit ever feels like they are 100% set when it comes to fundraising. And unfortunately, while I wish I could take my 10 minutes tonight and tell you, here's the one trick that you need to know to be successful at fundraising for your organization, there really isn't a single trick. I think the real important thing, if you want to have a sustainable organization, is to have diversity of funding sources. So this can include institutional donors, which is corporate or foundation donors primarily, small donors, so your friends and family and other people in your network who might give $10 to $20, large donors, so the relationships with maybe high net worth individuals, people who you can cultivate to give those larger donations, fundraising campaigns, whether they're online or offline, but specific time-bound campaigns where you're trying to hit certain goals. Events are wonderful, hosting dinners or auctions or running races. Again, having something time-bound and concrete to mobilize donors around is really important. And if you're lucky, you can also think about ways to do an income generation activity, something that is on mission with what your organization is already doing, but can also generate maybe a little bit of profit for the organization to help with sustainability. I think sometimes organizations realize, oh, I'm going to be successful with institutional donors, and that's where I'm going to focus my energy. But then when those grants end or if funding priorities change, you can be really stuck. So the best strategy is really start where you're strongest, but quickly work to diversify the sources of funding, so that if one source starts to dry up or give you a challenge, you have others to fall back on. I think now I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking about 3 top tips, particularly around those small and large donor categories, since that's where we focus as a crowdfunding platform, is the individual donor sector. Yes, I'm ready for the next slide. And I'll just say now, before I go into these 3, this is just barely scratching the surface of the tips that we've collected at Global Giving. The place to go to find the rest of these is at globalgiving.org/crowdfundamentals. We have a 10-step guide you can read through pretty quickly to get some more tips, and then we have many other resources on our site you can poke around and look for. And I'll say it again at the end, but my email address is down there. Also, welcome to email me for more information. So 3 of the top tips that I think are most important when you're successful crowdfunding. And I'm just going to define crowdfunding broadly as fundraising smaller amounts of money from a larger group of people using the internet. There can be crowdfunding in person, there can be crowdfunding with larger donors, but for these particular tips, think about think about your online campaigns where you're trying to raise, say, $5,000 from a group of donors. So a lot of people think that crowdfunding is intimately connected with the use of social media and the emergence of social media. The top crowdfunding campaigns you might think about, you probably heard about over social media. This is true, but I think it also does a disservice to people who are trying to raise money through crowdfunding by thinking that social media is the answer. So you definitely need to use social media and use it well, but you can't rely on it to bring in the donations. Lots of things have changed with the art of fundraising with the expansion of the internet and social media platforms, but there's one rule that hasn't changed, and that's people generally don't give money unless someone specifically asks them to. So you posting on your Facebook wall that you need donations is never going to be as good as you sending an email to someone saying, please donate to me. And that's never going to be as good as calling someone, and that's never going to be as good as asking them in person. So really, as social media is about as impersonal as you can get, and you want to make that ask be more as personal as possible. We think the best balance is really email, because you can still take advantage of technology, reach out to a lot of people at once, but you get that more personal touch. So use social media to remind people, to get people excited about donating, or share photos, to thank people for donating. So it should be a part of your crowdfunding strategy, but don't rely on it alone. The second thing I want to touch on is A/B testing. If you've worked in communications or marketing, or even if you run your own website, you might have come across A/B testing before. But I'll just give you a quick background on what that means. Imagine you're sending an email to 100 people asking them to donate, and at the top of the email, there's a big green button that says donate. Well, what if that button was red? Maybe more people would donate just by changing the color of that button. So the idea with A/B testing is you would take a sample of those 100 people, send some of them a green button email and some of them a red button email, see which of those colors makes people click on the button the most. That's a really simple example, but it works in many different areas of fundraising. And this is really the great thing about using technology to help you fundraise, and that you can test things and really get immediate analysis and results. So one thing we do a lot of at Global Giving is testing different subject lines. So you can send one email that says, I need money to build a school in my hometown, and you could send the same email with a different subject line that just says, I need a favor, can you help? And you see which of those emails is open the most, which ones have the people most likely to donate, and then you can what you learn from that test can influence your future fundraising strategy. The same principles can be used on your crowdfunding pages or on your own website. And if you just do a Google search for A/B testing, you will find tons of great resources about this. Most of the standard kind of email list managers and mass email programs that you might be familiar with, MailChimp, SendGrid, these are all free to start using until your list gets to a certain size, and they all have built-in A/B testing software. So again, I would check out MailChimp or SendGrid. Even if your mailing list right now for your potential donors is only 10, 15 people, go ahead and start using it so you get familiar with it while the stakes are lower. And then when you do get your mailing list up to 50 or 100 or 1,000 people, you'll really have a handle on how it works. A great program to test for website A/B testing is called Optimizely. And again, if you have questions about any of those programs, just drop me a note. And third, and maybe most important, to be successful at crowdfunding, we talked a lot at Global Giving about the importance of fundraising advocates. And these are the people who are not employees of your organization. These aren't you. This isn't your co-founder. These are people who just like your organization and like it enough that they're not only going to donate themselves, but they're going to ask their friends and family to donate. So these are people that become your fundraisers. So this is where crowdfunding gets really powerful. It's great if you can ask 10 friends and family members to each give you $10. Great, you got $100, and that's wonderful. But what if you could not only get them to give you $10, but you could ask them to also ask 10 friends to get $10? You can see how that starts to expand very quickly. So your job as an organization is not just to convince the people you know to donate, but to convince them that they should also be asking their friends and family and coworkers and up their network to help your cause. And then you need to teach them how to do that well. So you need to make it really easy. You need to get them excited about it. You need to thank them for doing it. And there are lots of resources out there about how to train, recruit, and thank fundraising advocates. The first step is just brainstorming who they might be. So I like to do a network mapping exercise with organizations I work with. Think through the different networks you're involved in. So work, school, alumni groups, church groups, community groups, online groups. List those all out. List 5 people in each who you think you could convince or you could try to convince to be advocates for you. And that's a great place to start. You might be surprised about how big that list can get if you really start listing everybody out. So again, globalgiving.org/crowdfundamentals has these tips and more in a really digestible format. Drop me an email, mgale@globalgiving.org. And if you are looking to join a crowdfunding campaign, do look at Global Giving. You can apply to join our platform at globalgiving.org/apply. And I will leave it there, but hang out for a while if there are questions. I think you can share those in the chat box. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was very, very informative information. I know some of our community partners through the GYSD Community Partner Program that I run here at YSA use Global Giving to do some of their crowdfunding and fundraising, and they've had great success with it. So I think it's a really great platform that hopefully more individuals and organizations can get on board with. And I know definitely check out all our listeners who have just maybe joined the call in the last 10 minutes. Definitely check out the resources that Michael mentioned at globalgiving.org/crowdfundamentals. Additionally, there are some resources on the right-hand side of your panel. Those are resources that Amanda and Aditya have shared with us, and I imagine they will discuss them more, but at any point you can open and download those resources. And I really want to remind also all the listeners who've just joined on that don't forget to hashtag GYSD if you're on Twitter, and follow us at Youth Service. I'm going to launch a poll question right now to all of our listeners, so go ahead and fill that out once I launch it. So the question is, what are some of the biggest hurdles you face when trying to raise money for your service project or organization? And the choices are finding donors, finding people passionate about your cause, receiving the money, explaining how you are using the money, and legitimate organizations to donate to. So right now, most people are saying finding donors. Okay, we're going to let it run for about 30 more seconds. Still finding donors is in the lead, but then there is some other people who are saying finding people passionate about your cause and receiving the money are also some roadblocks they experience. No one is having any problem with legitimate organizations to donate to. Okay. Wow. So that was very good. About 74% of you voted that finding donors was your biggest challenge. So hopefully you'll learn some tips from our philanthropy webinar using resources like Global Giving, and then to come now, Aditya and his brother Nitish, who have started 2 of their own 501c3s. And I will, give me 1 second. We're going to move over to the 2 brothers.
Hey, so I'm Aditya,
And I'm Nitish.
and my brother and I have started a few organizations kind of out of our basement. Whenever we saw a need, we kind of jumped in and decided to see if we could do what we wanted to do our part. Anyways, I'll be talking primarily about my first organization, and my brother will be talking about his, and together we'll tell you guys how we can raise money. So the first organization, Working Together for Change, is a nonprofit that's all about ending homelessness. So the way we do this is we generally go around and we figure out what we want to give out to the homeless or what services we want to give out, make a list of that, and then see if we can do it without money first. But if we need money, such as the case of our second nonprofit, Hackstart, we tend to go out and just raise some.
So for Hackstart, our mission in Hackstart is really to increase computer literacy among high school students. And in order to teach computer literacy, you really need the equipment, the computers, the programming knowledge, all of it. Unfortunately, that can sometimes be expensive, and that's where the need for fundraising can come in. There are three main ways that we've outlined how we can fundraise.
Next slide, please.
So these three ways are grant writing, sponsorships, and crowdfunding. And we'll go each of these three ways in depth. Can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so the first main way we're talking about is really grant writing. Now, first we'll go over what is grant writing. Grant writing can really best be defined as filling out an application to a higher institution that's willing to give money for a specific cause or reason. There are a couple different tips to grant writing. The first is, well, where can I find some grants, or where can I apply to these grants? Now, this question can really be tackled through three main segments. First, what is your cause? Look for grants that are highly specific to your cause. If you're doing homelessness, then target homelessness grants. If you're doing computer literacy or any other area, really, then target those specific grants, because it's really easier to appeal to someone who is willing to give out for a specific reason. The second main question we want to look at is for your specific age group. If you're a high school student, that just makes your application so much better. When adults look at us high school students, it really sends a signal saying that these are high school students that are willing to do something, and they don't really have the funds that are able to do it, so why don't we give them the grant? The third is really keep up with social media. Now, people who are giving out grants really have one reason: to effectively give people who need it the most money. So keeping up with social media is important because they'll also publicize how to get these grants, where to get these grants, and what kind of process and each of the steps we need to go. Now, a couple of big grants, a couple of big corporations that give out grants include, of course, YSA, Youth Service America, The Giving Point, Start a Snowball, Volunteer Forever. These are just a couple of organizations, and as I mentioned earlier, you really should try to do a bit of research on your specific cause and your specific age group. But if you're kind of stuck and you don't know where you want to start, these are really four big organizations that give out a lot of grants. And specifically for writing a grant application, when you want to ask someone, can I have this money in order to do what I want to do, you really have to go in depth and be specific. Really, but what I mean by being specific is quantify it. If you're applying for a grant that's $1,000, maybe you want $300 to go for, I don't know, buying computers. Maybe you want $300 to go for being able to pay for speakers to attend your events. And maybe the other $400 wants to go to being able to purchase specific coding platforms or applications. But basically what you want to do is break it down very simply for the person who you're applying to, so that they can say, oh, wow, they've got it all planned, they've got it all set out. Sure, it looks like they're pretty much set. All they need is the money. And because they're willing to give you the money, well, then you're really all set. Now, the second way is sponsorships. And can we go to the next slide, please?
So everyone typically knows what sponsorships are. You reach out to a group or an organization or a corporation and they try and fund you. And this is distinct from grant writing in that you don't typically need to apply for sponsorships as much. So how do you get sponsorships, and what kind of sponsorships are there? Well, first of all, you want to figure out whether you want pure money or you want someone to match your money, or however you want to do that. So two main ones that are applicable for us is a general sponsorship where you reach out to an organization and you ask them for a certain amount of money and they give you that amount of money. The second is when you ask them and you say, hey, I'll raise X amount of money, can you give me X amount of money in return? So if I raise 500, will you give me 500? Or will you give me 70 cents on the dollar that I raise? And there's a couple ways to get these kinds of sponsorships as well. like my brother was talking about earlier, the most important thing when you're applying for a sponsorship is to figure out what you want the money for. So if you want the money for food or a specific type of product, then the first thing you want to do is you want to make a list of organizations or companies that are giving out that product that you want. First, ask for the product instead, because companies are a lot more willing to give out something if it's already branded. If not, if you just want money, then make a list of companies related to your cause anyways, because they're more likely to give you what you want if it's within their area of interest. What we found that really helps to legitimize our cause is to create a sponsorship package. So if you look to your right, there's a little drop-down menu, I think, where they have a bunch of handouts that are provided. And we've posted one of the examples of a sponsorship packet that we've used in the past. And as you can see, if you open up this packet, is that the main thing that gets across is it's very professional. You need to get across that you're legitimate, you have a great idea for what you want to do with the money, you have specific, I guess, sponsorship outlines packeted out, and you know exactly what you want. The more legitimate you seem, the more people are going to believe that you know what what you've been set out to do, and you know that you're going to be able to accomplish it with a certain amount of money. When you're creating the sponsorship package, there's 4 things you should really keep in mind. You should, 1, outline the benefits to the sponsors, because they should always know what's in it for them. So, for example, for us with a hackathon, are we giving them, are we using their technology? Are we promoting their brand? What are we doing for them? The second thing is it should outline the benefits to the community. So as nonprofits, we're typically out trying to better the world in some way or another, right? So in the case of Hackstart, what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase literacy among high school students. So that's one benefit to the community that we're providing. That will only be possible if the sponsors give us their sponsorship. The third thing is you should have an explicit sponsorship option. So again, if you open up that packet, you can see that there's a lot of specific tiers that they can apply for, right? If they want to give X amount of money, they get X benefits back. So if you have that outline, then it appears as if you're even more organized than you might really be. The last thing is, like I was saying earlier, it should really be professional and easy to understand. At one glance, they should be able to look at it and say, oh, this is what I'm getting out of it, this is how much money I need to give. Your credibility really rests on how clean your sponsorship package is. And once you've made your sponsorship package, you want to make a list of everyone that you can reach out to and actually reach out to every single one of those companies. And continue to reach out to them at least once or twice a week until you get a response, regardless of whether it's positive or it's negative. Always make a list and keep track of that list. So if people are favorable, if people want to give you money, then keep that in mind, because next time when you want to go ask for money again, they might be people you want to reach out to again. Next slide, please. The other really big way to raise money is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is essentially raising small portions of money from a lot of people. So in order to look at crowdfunding, you want to, I guess, make a list of places that you want to reach out to, right? So global giving was one that was really talked about earlier, and global giving is a really great one. We've actually used it before as well. Other really big non-profit-oriented crowdfunding websites are Razoo, Causes, BuzzBN, Start Something Good, and CrowdRise. The benefit to crowdfunding is that it's very passive. Once you've figured out what you want to do and where you want to apply, then it's really easy to just sit back and wait. All you need to do is remain active on social media and make sure your message is getting across. There's a little bit less of the emailing and the back and forth that we have to see all the time. But another really big thing about crowdfunding is it doesn't necessarily have to be online. It can definitely be in real life. So especially as kids, we're around giant communities all the time. Whether we're going to school or we're going to different practice for sports or something like that, we're always around a bunch of different people that are relatively passionate. So again, if you already have something in mind that you want to ask for example, if you want to ask for toys or you want to ask for warm coats, then the best chance to get that kind of stuff is to really just reach out to your schools or your churches or your communities and ask for what you want directly. Because people are a lot more comfortable giving out something that they already have, especially if they know where the money is going to be going towards. If you still want money, though, you can definitely set up fundraising activities where people pay small amounts to enjoy certain things. So for example, if you wanted to raise money, you could set up a race, or for example, even a video game tournament or something like that, where you pay $5 or $6 to enter, but all the money that's being raised, or for example, concession stands at sports games, all the money that's being raised is really just going towards the specific cause rather than just something else. Next slide, please. So general advice about raising money is, especially as kids, asking for money is very awkward. So it's always like something that you don't want to really approach or reach out to. So the biggest advice is you got to push yourself into action, even if you don't know what you're in it for. Like even if you're not sure what steps to take or anything like that, you just got to go out and you got to ask the first time. And it's really good that you guys are already out here because it means that you've already taken that first step, that first push into action. That's actually how my brother and I got started too. We began without even having like a general idea about the logistics or anything like that. We just knew that we wanted to make a change. So we decided to go out and ask. The second biggest piece of advice that I have is probably that people care. So you should definitely take advantage of that. One wonderful benefit about the age that we're living in, this very technological age, is that we're just a fingertips reach away from so many millions of people that are out there that care about the causes that we're interested in, right? So regardless of what cause it is, regardless of whether you want to help get the elderly connected to technology, or you want to help youth learn how to code, or you want to help homeless people, or you want to raise awareness about dentists and getting your teeth checked all the time, whatever it is, there's a lot of people that are out there that are not just passionate about what you're passionate about, but they're also passionate about you. They're very impressed by the fact that you have decided to take a stance, that you have decided to do something about a problem that you see, and that you are going out there and you've taken that first step. So reach out to those people that care. Reach out to the people in the communities that are always there for you and take their advice. And that brings me to my third piece of advice actually, is you're never too young. There's no such thing as being too young. Right now, we're the perfect age to do anything. We don't have jobs like our parents do, and we're old enough to use what we have and the ideas that we have and turn our imaginations into reality. So we should take advantage of our age, and we should definitely go out and do what we can and try and change the problems that we see out in the world. And again, the last piece of advice, which I guess I led into that as well, is to use your network. If you know people that are interested in you or people that are interested in your cause, definitely reach out. Whatever your cause is, make a Facebook page or Twitter or something that can get everyone connected, that you can have to access everyone that you want to reach out to and everyone that you might not even know you want to reach out to, so that you have a standard place to get your message across. Use that network and reach out to people that are interested in your cause to make sure you can do what you want to do. Thank you for your time. And I think that's my last slide.
Thank you so much, guys. That was very, very informative. I really love when we have the more of the young person or the youth perspective on these webinars. You guys have really done some incredible work. You haven't even started one, but two 501c3s, which is very impressive. Thank you so much for the advice. So before we move on to the next speaker and our final panelist, Amanda, I'm going to launch one more poll so you can get a little more audience engagement. And if you have joined recently, don't forget hashtag GYSD, and you can follow us at Youth Service on Twitter if you're online. And I know our staff here in the office is pretty active. So here is our second question for you all. The question is, what are some incentives you use to encourage philanthropy in your service project or organization? And some of the options, you can select a couple. There are thank you cards, gala, silent auction events. Explain where the money is specifically going to, project reports / stories from the field, and recognition. So far, 100% of you have said thank you cards / gifts. Oh, everyone is kind of doing all of these. You guys are pretty great. I'm going to give it about one more minute. Get in your votes. So we have 91% thank you cards or gifts, 68% for both project reports, stories from the fields, and recognition. Those are really great. People want to see what the project is happening. You know, they invest money in the very beginning, but as the project progresses, it's really great to share those reports back to your constituents. Okay. That's great. So still 92% thank you cards and gifts, and then tied at 71% project reports, stories from the fields, and recognition. And the other two also high percentages. That's great. It's very important to give incentives to people who are donating. You wish that people could donate from the bottom of your heart, but it's really, there's so many options these days. It's really great to thank our donors as best we can. So we're going to move on to Amanda now. Let me get you set up.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Howard, and I'm the Manager of Corporate and Community Volunteerism at United Way of Greater Toledo. You can go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So United Way is a worldwide organization, and we are just one of the local United Ways based in Northwest Ohio. Our mission is to change the odds so children and families, regardless of their circumstances, have the same chance to succeed in school and in life. Nationally and locally, we're focused on education, income, and health, improving the human condition. So one of the projects that we do is we participate in Global Youth Service Day, and our volunteer center does. And we are the lead agency for Northwest Ohio, and we have been for quite a few years now. So the event continues to grow each year, and we have seen great results with growing partnerships and collaboration, where we're able to raise about $20,000 to put on a great celebration at the end of all the volunteer projects. And I'm ready for the next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to discuss a little bit about our sponsorships and in-kind donations that we get to support this event specifically. And my first just little piece of advice is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So we've all heard that, but a lot of times we don't make an ask. So people aren't going to give to the cause unless you ask them to. And so who should we be asking? Creating a list of potential sponsors, asking individuals, nonprofits, government, they can give in kind for outdoor donations if you need lawnmowers or trash bags and things like that. And then companies. So I'm going to focus a lot tonight on companies and how we reach out to companies to be involved in events like Global Youth Service Day. So one of the main things is to research and know who you're asking. Know a little bit about that company. What are their goals in community involvement, and why would they be attracted to the event or the project that you're hosting? So I recommend creating a sponsorship packet, and there's actually on the right-hand side 2 handouts and 2 different examples. One is a 1-page document, simple and short and sweet, that we made for one of our healthcare companies in town, not only inviting them to get involved through sponsoring, but through volunteerism and advocacy, which our organization also focuses on. So it wasn't just about the ask, but building the relationship. We want their corporate leaders to stand side by side with kids on Global Youth Service Day and volunteer with them to serve as the servers and greeters and face painters at the celebration for the youth who volunteered all day, and to recognize that. We want them to participate in the advocacy efforts that we're focusing on. And then there's also, if you know your audience and you're having an in-person meeting, the PowerPoint aspect. So you can make a PowerPoint, a 1-pager, email it, but I always recommend setting up an in-person meeting to review the sponsorship request. So don't just put it in the mail and call it a day, or send it out in a mass email. Make it really personal and build a relationship. Pick up the phone, shoot them a personal email, and see if you can meet in person. So I'm ready for the next slide, please. I also recommend, once you have that sponsorship, creating a clear agreement with the company or the other nonprofit and being really transparent and authentic. So get each sponsor involved and make the sponsor a priority. And make sure that your goals align. Some examples are we send volunteers to a ton of different nonprofit organizations who provide their own supplies for those volunteers during the day. Like I said, we partner with the local city government to provide supplies for those different organizations as well. We have individual donors as well as sponsorships from companies. One example of a sponsorship where a company wasn't able to give monetarily, but they were able to create a logo and design flyers and t-shirts for all of our youth during the event, and they were a local advertising and marketing company. So moving on, it's always important to stay in touch with the sponsors and follow up with a thank you, whether it's a personal thank you, a call, a handwritten card, an email, and stay in touch not just the day after the event, but throughout the year. So if you have an email distribution list that you can add that sponsor to and keep them in the loop. Here are other things we're doing throughout the year, and here are other ways to get involved and stay engaged. Invite the sponsor to get involved with your organization and keep them involved year-round. And that's really all I have, and I'm just excited to stay on the line and answer any questions people might have.
Great, thank you so much for your valuable advice, Amanda. I know you work, your guys' work at United Way of Greater Toledo has done some amazing GYSD projects, and we're really happy to be partners with you guys. So we're going to move on to YSA's top 10 list. A lot of these things were already touched on by our four amazing panelists, but I wanted to just expand a little of some things we've learned from our work in youth service. So our first suggestion is find sponsors whose mission aligns with your goals. So for example, Home Depot. Potentially you're starting a community garden, and maybe Home Depot won't sponsor you with a financial donation, but you need shovels and you need some soil, and potentially they'll be able to donate those in-kind donations. This is a great tip that came from Scott, who's our Senior Director of Education and Training here at YSA. And number 2 is don't just ask for money. So this follows up to number 1 with Home Depot. That was with food and things that you would need to provide with your volunteers while they're working. So for example, you have an all-day event and you need lunch catered. Again, these organizations can't give you money, but they could give you food in kind. Number 3 that I think all of our presenters touched on was send thank yous to your donors and sponsors. And after that poll that we did, it showed that even you in the audience were also agreed with this. So we all love to feel appreciated, so it's very important to send personalized or emails or any sort of thank yous to the people who are philanthropically being involved with our organization. Number 4 is share good quality photos of your work to help tell your story. This is a great way to keep funders involved with your project. Many times they'll start and give a donation at the very beginning, but in order to have a follow-up donation, it's really great to tell your donors what you're up to, what their money has been put towards. Sometimes that can go with the thank you note or can go up just in a follow-up email. Another tool we like to use is are basically all online tools, but a good organization to look into is Good World, and you can use #donate. So with #donate, you can donate instantly through social media. So look up Good World for more information. In addition, grantstation.com, this is a great searchable platform to find many grants. Hopefully in the near future, you can have more access to those grants through our YSA network. In addition, number 7 is to network. I know several of you also touched on this before, but it's really important to find those people who also care about your issue and project. These people are already invested, and maybe they're looking for a good cause or organization to support, and you could be their answer. Number 8, make it a competition. This is very applicable in schools, so it's really good to get different classrooms to vote against or work against each other, maybe at a food drive or a coin drive, to help raise those philanthropic efforts. Number 9, invite potential donors to volunteer at your event. Once people see the work you're doing, potentially they are more likely to contribute time and money to your project. And finally, our last tip is if you are an organization, you are welcome to join our GYSD Community Partner Program. We have many fundraising tools and grant opportunities that we would love to share with you, and you can go at www.ysa.org/GYSD Community Partners to find out more. And in addition, our YSA website always has our latest grant opportunities as well. To wrap up, I just wanted to share once again that we have those additional resources available on the side of the webinar. We will post this video on YouTube later, and if you have any questions to any of the panelists, we'll still be in touch after. But just as a heads up, before I open up to any questions we may have, our next webinar will be next month, the third Thursday on January 21st at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And the subject for this is gaining momentum for your project. So this is looking at building your coalition for GYSD. We're going to have speakers talking about how to make an elevator pitch, how to gain more partners, and then also how to recruit more volunteers. So I really want to give a final thank you to our 4 speakers for the night. And I'm going to quickly look to see if we have any questions that we want to ask them before we wrap up. Okay, I'm just looking at these questions. So we have a lot of great thank yous. That looks great. Okay, I like this question. So Ryan is asking, how long should sponsor packets be? We have someone insisting they should only be 1 page. What is your experience? 1 second, I'm going to go ahead and unmute both Amanda and Aditya, and potentially since you guys both shared a sponsorship package, you could answer his question.
Yeah, so in my experience, typically the 3-page has been the most useful for us. Typically, we like to start off with a beautiful first page that kind of draws them in, like, oh, this is professional. Then the second page should really be about why should they sponsor you, like what will they get out of it, what will the community get out of it, right? And then the third thing for us is the tiers of sponsorship, so the sponsorship packages per se. If you could condense that somehow and still make it pretty, then that's more power to you. That's just been my experience, though.
This is Amanda, and I really think it just depends from the experience I've had with sponsorship. So it depends if it's an event, if it's a year-long program or project, and really how in-depth you need to go. Are you just sending the packet out to somebody? Are you sitting down for an hour with them where you can really discuss it, and you might have other materials that support, and what type of project it is? So I don't think there's one clear-cut answer that I could give. I do think, always including the benefits, background on your organization, background on the project or event, and the tiered sponsorship all need to be included.
Great, thank you for those answers. So we have a couple other specific questions, but we'll follow up with them directly about copies of the slides, and this webinar will be available online on YouTube, and we'll share it out to everyone who's here. And if anyone has any specific questions for the panelists, they did share their information in the slides, so feel free to reach out to them with any questions. And we're going to wrap up just about now. I want one final thank you to all of our panelists, and I hope everyone in the audience learned something new. We'll see you next month in January. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.